How do you know whether to use the conditional probabilities in rows or columns to answer a question about a two-way table? We'll explore that with this situation. We have 500 respondents, some of whom are male and some of whom are female, who stated whether they preferred salty or sweet snacks. In part A, you see, or in option A, we see that 300 out of the 390 people who preferred sweet snacks were male, and only 90 out of the 390, or 23%, were female. Therefore, since 77% of those who prefer sweet snacks are male and only 23% are female, it appears that males prefer sweet snacks more than females do. Statement B looks at the row conditional probabilities in the rows. And it says 300 out of 400 of males prefer sweet snacks, and 90 out of 100 of females prefer sweet snacks. So, comparing 75% to 90%, we say since the proportion of women who prefer sweet snacks, 90%, is higher than the proportion of men who prefer sweet snacks, 75%, it appears that females prefer sweet snacks more than males do, although both genders prefer sweet to salty. So which of the following statements about this table is correct? A, or B, or both? You might want to pause and consider and then turn it back on to see what the answer is. Well, hopefully you eliminated both as a possibility since the two statements contradict each other. It turns out that B is the correct answer. When you are in this case, the explanatory variable is gender. In other words, we want to know if gender influences one's choice of snack. So when you are looking at gender as the explanatory variable, we want to compare the genders to each other, so we have to consider them separately. So to separate the genders, we have to look at the conditional probabilities in the rows, not the columns. So notice that 300 out of the 400, or 75%, of the males prefer sweet, but 90% of the females prefer sweet. So we're saying among all the females, we have a 90% rate preferring sweet. Among all the males, 75% rate. Why is it then that part A gives us a contradictory statement? Well, if you look at the sweet total, it is true that a much higher proportion of those who preferred sweet snacks were male. But if you look at the salty column, it is also true that a much higher proportion of those who prefer salty snacks are male. That's because a much higher proportion of all the respondents are male. So we would expect to have more males in any category that we asked about. So that's why we have to group males and females separately, using rows and not columns. So it does matter whether you choose rows or columns. Think about which variable that you want to compare. If the variables you want to compare are in the columns, look at the columns separately. If the variables that you want to compare are in the rows, look at the rows separately. In this case, we want to compare male to female in their choice of snack. So we would choose rows.